just devastating news for the Indiana Fever with Aari McDonald and Sydney Colson both ruled out for the season due to injury. Look, I mean, I said it was a painful loss before, but this was worse than could have been imagined that both guards are down. That's with the starting point guard already out in Caitlyn Clark. Of course, Caitlyn Clark has been sidelined for a minute with that groin injury. It's an ACL for Sydney Colson. It's a broken foot for Aari McDonald. And the first thing about it is it's a complete bummer, right? Like, it's just a total bummer. You know, Aari McDonald, you got to feel for her. She was waived by the Sparks. She fights her way back with the Fever. She fights for a spot with the hardship contract. She lands a rest of season contract. And then she suffers something. It's just the cruel fate of sports. Sydney Colson, also, you know, a veteran who's bounced around, been a locker room leader, has been a steady presence for the Fever. Just not the kind of thing you want to see for anyone, of course. But, you know, where she is in her career, that's a big injury to overcome. And then there's the Indiana Fever side of things. You know, look, they needed Aari McDonald. Beyond just needing her in a hardship situation, they didn't have a backup point guard or ball handler who could put pressure on the rim, who could set other people up and could score beyond Caitlyn Clark. Aari McDonald fit like a glove in that respect. She also hustled her tail off on defense, provided a different look there, a certain level of tenacity. And then Sydney Colson could be called in and you know, again, is a defensive player, a steady presence. I don't think, you know, if I'm being honest, I don't think the loss of Colson as a player on the floor is tremendous, but as a presence in the locker room, she can still be there, but she helps out while on the floor and while on the bench and all those things. Not to mention, when you lose the rest of your players, you're just out of options and you have to go to the next player. So somebody with that kind of experience is a real benefit. So you shift to two things. Number one, when does Caitlyn Clark come back? And number two, what do the Fever do from this point here? Because the Fever have the option of hardship contracts again. They can't do it this weekend. So they're going to have to play with just 9 players against the Chicago Sky, a good opponent to only have 9 players against, but nonetheless, they will be down and short there. So after that, they can add hardship players. But by this time in the season, there just aren't many players sitting around to be picked up. I mean, Bree Hall immediately comes to mind because she was in the Fever organization before and maybe has a little experience. Odyssey Sims, Serena Sundell, other names that will get thrown out there. I'm trying to think of more off the top of my head, but there just isn't really, you know, players have been signed, players have been injured and come in, players have been traded, players have been waived. All of those moves have been made by this point in the season. We're actually even past the trade deadline. So the front office, you know, is not in a good spot. Well, they'll do the best they can, I'm sure. It has nothing to do with the coaching staff, the players, Steph, or any of the other players' number fault. This is, again, you have to point at the schedule. Really 4 games in 7 days for the Fever. It's not a coincidence when you see injuries happen, when teams are playing a bunch of games in a short period of time. Every time I look at the schedule, it concerns me. That is something that the league has to address. Now you get to Caitlyn Clark, and you don't want to rush her back just because this happened. But the question is, how close is she? Because if she's close, then, you know, that ramp up process maybe starts. I don't know necessarily if you want to say sooner, because you have to operate on the timeline that she was already on. But there's going to be a level of desperation is probably a strong word, urgency around Caitlyn Clark getting back in the lineup in order to salvage the season. They needed her in order to take them over the top. Now they may need her in order to even get to the bottom of the hill so that they can climb to the top. With that said, she shouldn't put herself at risk and she shouldn't rush things. I mean, we saw what happened when that did happen, but we're getting towards the dates where she would be in the process of returning anyway, right? I mean, I have to think we're several weeks out from the initial injury. And within, you know, a week or two of the ballpark numbers that people have been throwing out for her return. So I would imagine we get word from the Indiana Fever on that. Maybe not, because they've said no timeline. But we'll get more speculation on that. That's for sure, until Caitlyn is actually in uniform and on the floor. Now, she's the overall game changer here, because Caitlyn Clark has the ability to elevate everything, right? Like, when you get her, you go over the top. We've already talked about that. But when you get her, you also get this incredible floor raiser just by her ability to score and make others better. I mean, look at the way Lexi Hull has struggled without Caitlin Clark in the lineup, getting those shots. I mean, obviously, it makes life easier for Leah Boston. It makes life easier for everybody out there. Now, in the meantime, they got to make do without any point guards. So again, in that Sky game, you're probably looking at Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull doing a lot of the ball handling duties. Kelsey Mitchell will have to shift into that role as well, though. Of course, Kelsey Mitchell is just not wired that way. That's not her type of game. That's not her style of game. She is a scorer. Nothing wrong with that. But she may be the best candidate to run the one at this point. I don't laugh because it's funny. I laugh because, it's the situation that they are in. And talk about a team going through adversity in a year. I mean, to deal with Caitlin Clark's injuries, to deal with Stephanie White had the personal matters to attend to, DeWanna Bonner and that entire situation, the way that the league investigated the Sky stuff at the very beginning of the year, Clark coming back out, McDonald coming in, back out, back in, so on and so forth. I mean, there's just really been so much for the Fever to have to overcome. Sophie Cunningham was on the shelf for a while there as well. And it's just, it's hard to imagine you be down 3 point guards because you can't really, point the finger here and say, oh, this is a roster depth problem. They did have a roster depth problem, and they addressed it in the form of Aari McDonald. But now McDonald is out, and Colson is out, and Clark is out. I mean, is that enough to count the Indiana Fever out? I mean, you're getting to the point where there's only so much a team can overcome. Luckily, they have enough of a cushion record-wise. I do believe in their head coach. I do believe in the rest of their players. Maybe Kelsey Mitchell, has one game where she just sees everything and or just takes over and wins a game that way. And then, of course, I do believe whenever you have Caitlin Clark, you have a chance. But the fine line there is you want Caitlin Clark at 100%, not Caitlin Clark getting herself back out there just to get herself back out there, because it is that 100% Caitlin Clark version that will elevate the Fever the most. They can be elevated now, and of course, the most they can be elevated going forward. But I am curious as to her status because she has been on the shelf for a minute, probably to the point where that should be mostly healed or all the way healed, and to the point of then preparing for gameplay, or we have to be in that ballpark. I would hope and think at this minute. I don't know for sure, but I mean, I guess the season was always going to come down to Caitlin Clark. But now the season comes down to Caitlin Clark in an even more drastic fashion, because in a lot of ways the season has been a disaster for the Indiana Fever.